What's happening, Hardscapers? This is episode 280 of the How to Hardscape podcast, where we talk about how you can start and grow your hardscaping business. And in today's episode, I'm just going to do a year-end review of my past year as we come down to a close here with just basically having 3 to 5 day projects left on the schedule that I'll just go until the snow flies, basically. So I'll talk about my season, how it went, what moves I did not make, just based on what I talked about last year around the same time of the year. But before we get into today's episode, we want to thank our sponsors, Cycle CPA. And if you're looking for bookkeeping, accounting, CFO services, reach out to Cycle CPA at cyclecpa.com. Let them know How to Hardscape sent you for money off their services there. Knowledge Tree Consulting. If you are looking for somebody to help you in your business, I would highly recommend Knowledge Tree Consulting. They are efficiency consultants in our industry, and you've heard them on the podcast multiple times before. George and Peter of Oriole Landscaping, and George a couple of other times talking about various topics, and we'll definitely have George on in the future to talk more. But you can learn more about them at knowledgetreeconsulting.com. And if you're looking for a software to dive into this off-season, the How to Hardscape headquarters software can help you budget, estimate job costs, time track, and use our course database to be able to assign to your employees for training and onboarding purposes, with many more features in the works. If you want to learn more about that, go to hthheadquarters.com. That's HTH for How to Hardscape headquarters.com. And without further ado, let's get into today's episode. All right, following last year where I talked about things that went right, went wrong in my business, just following up on what I did this year and what changes I made, what things I added, and what seemed to work and what seemed to not in my business. I'm especially going to be talking about porcelain in this episode after we just wrapped up our second porcelain project. This one was about 800 square feet of porcelain. Our first porcelain project was about 400 square feet. And I'll be especially talking about that larger one that I did with the porcelain and how I could have or should have priced it more, and my thoughts on where I went wrong in the communication of that, or more so in my organization, I would say. So first things first, last year was my first full year where I didn't have a full-time employee. I kind of scaled back, dialed back more so in terms of I had just one part-time employee last year. This year I had one part-time employee, sometimes two, but then I added a full-time employee finally this year, and that was amazing. It's probably been my best employee that I've ever had, and he's looking forward to coming back next year, which I won't count on. I will make a bigger push in the off season to try to hire somebody with experience, and that would be my goal in terms of hiring and employees. But my best employee by far, for sure, hard worker, great work ethic. Downside is that he can only show up by about 9 a.m. in the mornings, but that would be just for the time being as he takes his kids to school. I'm sure in probably about a couple of years, he was thinking he would have a bit more of a flexible schedule. So mid to longer term, he would be just a regular, full-time employee starting in the mornings earlier. And that has been a huge thing for me, especially with these porcelain projects that I did at the end of the year. You really need 2 people for these, and it would be a huge pain to not have an additional employee for installing porcelain, especially when it comes to the installation of the truss setting bed. Having somebody mixing and somebody actually back buttering and adhering the porcelain I couldn't imagine doing it just by myself. So that was a huge benefit to my business, especially at the end of this year here, to have that full-time employee kind of fall into my lap, luckily, and looking forward to him coming back next year. I didn't have the time to actually onboard him and to actually send him to our training platform that we do have with the How to Hardscape headquarters software. And the reason why I created those resources was actually because in the past, in exit interviews with employees, just very not documented or anything, but just asking them on their way out, hey, what could have I done differently to help set you up for success in the business? A lot of them just said like training would have been a lot better leading into actually being on site. And so I created resources for that, courses for that, 3-hour courses on the interlocking installation and segmental retaining wall installation. We've also got hardscape lighting installation and gas fire feature installation. They just really wanted a little bit more background as to what we were doing, how we go about it, as well as the why we do what we do, not that overarching business theme of why we do what we do, but in terms of the aggregates that we use and why we use some in different scenarios and applications and so on and so forth, and slope and all of that. They told me that it would have been beneficial to kind of come onto the job site with that knowledge without having any experience in the field. So we created those resources, and I really wanted to use those for future employees. Just the way that it worked out with the schedule, it didn't work out that I could just sit down my employee. I needed them kind of right away. But in the off season, I'm going to have them go through those resources, paid of course, or leading into the spring, I'll have them go through those resources and learn a little bit more beyond what we've already kind of discussed in the field. And he's already had hands-on experience and so on and so forth with that. But that is just the employee situation at my business. I still want to be in the field. I want to be in the field for probably a few more years. I still really enjoy getting my hands on things. So that's just the way that my business is going to go, because that's the way I want it to go for at least a few more years. That 3 to 5 year period mark, I will start to hopefully transition more so out of the field and be on the more background side of things. But definitely for the at least a few years, I still want to be installing. YouTube has been a thing that I really enjoy. I've always enjoyed editing videos, putting videos together, going back to my middle school days and doing that. So I do want to continue to do that. And the best way for me to continue to do that would also still be in the field as well. So kind of mutually beneficial to me being in the field, both with putting down a quality product and not having an employee that I can count on right now to be able to do that, but also to continue to be able to make these videos behind what we're doing and to expand on that side of the business and that side of the marketing to market my business more so. And with that, I guess I'll touch more so on the marketing aspect of what I'm going to do, especially in this off season to prepare for next year. Last year, I talked about it. I doubled down on my website, made pages for everything search engine optimized. It's something that I have worked on in the past, especially with the howtohardscape.com website and our articles that we have up there. We've got like more than 100 articles. So those are search engine optimized articles for specific hardscape keyword terms. And it's definitely not the first website that I put together for certain industries. And I just use my knowledge for that. But I put my own businesses, my landscaping businesses, SEO on the back burner to do that. So then last off season, I said, you know what? Doubling down on my website, making pages. I'll revisit that this year, see if there's any more pages that I want to add, especially as I add more videos to the YouTube channel. I embed those videos also on my pages. So I do have a page for outdoor porcelain installation, and I'm going to add my videos that I've already created on outdoor porcelain installation and embed those, and just double check all the other pages that I may want to edit and add to, and think about other search terms that I also want to rank for, and see if I can create some more sort of pages surrounding those services that I do offer, and to also add more articles as well for that. I do think I'll start to... Pages are great for the services that we offer, the locations that we service, but articles are going to be great for showcasing specific projects. And within those articles, I can target specific keywords, but that would be the differentiating factor between pages and articles, or posts if you use WordPress. Those posts are essentially blog posts. And that's what I'll start to work on this off season for the website, is posts will be relegated to specific projects and showing how we put specific projects together, and especially with the YouTube channel, taking those videos and embedding them and adding photos and so on and so forth, so that we can create like a portfolio of articles on the actual website there. So marketing wise, that's what I'll be doing with the website. And YouTube, obviously I've got a full slate of off-season videos to put together, as well as my most recent Porcelain project that we did. I have many videos that I can put together for that. That'll be a series in and of itself. If you want to follow along with that, that's at I Am a Hardscaper. So you can just search I Am a Hardscaper on YouTube, or go to youtube.com/at I Am a Hardscaper to be able to see more on that. But that definitely has helped my business as we get to certain points in the season that leads are coming in, as well as we're getting paid essentially for those leads based on the YouTube advertising monetization that we make there, which is awesome as well. So zero based marketing, basically. I'm not paying for those leads. In fact, I'm actually making money based on the marketing that those videos advertising that those videos actually bring in, which has always been the goal since I started the YouTube channel. And using those resources in our proposals as well has been a big benefiting factor for my business. I've touched on it a lot in the past, and I'll say it again. Putting together, we use the How to Hardscape Headquarters software to put together a beautiful proposal that has automated work scopes based on the production rates that we use. So if we're doing a patio, I use my paver production rate, and using that paver production rate, it automatically populates in the proposal the work scope that we do to actually install our paver patios, from the excavation, base preparation, screeding, laying, jointing, compound, and so on. And because I've created videos for each of these steps, those videos are hyperlinked in the proposal. It's been the number one thing that my clients say after I ask them, hey, why did you go with me at the end? They say it's because of how detailed you were with your proposal. And that is something that obviously we're going to continue to do here. And other things that I'm going to focus on marketing wise would be Instagram. And I said this last year, and I dropped the ball on it this year. And I will double down a little bit more on Instagram, just taking our YouTube videos and breaking them up. I signed up for a specific software. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but I do know that there's more than one out there where you pay monthly, but you upload a video and it'll break that video down into specific shorts or stories or Instagram reels, and you can set the duration, and it just finds like specific areas in your video that it can create a video around, or a very short video around, to be able to share on Instagram, YouTube Shorts, and so on and so forth there. So that is something that I will start to do in the off season, to just have bunch of content ready for, especially for next year. I do find that posting in the off season doesn't get as much traction as you do get during the season, but that's kind of a catch-22, because during the season you're incredibly busy, and that's why Instagram I dropped the ball on, and because I didn't take the off season to just produce a whole bunch of stories, of shorts, of reels. And I'm, with being on site and filming for YouTube, I don't want to also have to film for Instagram in that vertical format as well. I just want to focus on one and then split that up, repurpose that content to be able to split up, as opposed to spending a lot of time filming on site. Just do one thing, focus on that one thing. YouTube is that one thing for me. I'm a much better longer form content producer than I am a short form. And that's kind of just leaning into my strengths with that. But that's my goal for the off season. Just create a bunch of these shorter form vertical posts, and then have those ready to go in the spring. To then I don't have to actually think, what am I going to post? I got to edit it together. I've just got a bank of things that I can post anytime I want, and that's what I'm going to focus on. And that would be about it. I'm fairly comfortable right now with Google Ads and Facebook advertising, that when it comes to the season that I want to put money into that, I've already got my bank of search terms that I want to rank for or pay for Google Ads wise, and the targeted areas. I will probably work a little bit more on creating or organizing my database and adding more to it of certain postal codes in certain areas that I want to service and terms that I can specifically target for. So I touched on it in our marketing series. If you haven't listened to our marketing series, we have a part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of that marketing series. And I over the time of my business, I have put together a database of certain postal codes and just driving around and being able to see what work needs to be done in the front yard. Very easy to do, just driving around. And then specifically advertising Facebook, especially, of things that need to be done. So for example, if I see an area where a bunch of front steps may be falling apart, or driveways need to be fixed or redone or lifted and relayed, I can really target that demographic based on that zip code or area code. Postal code, and I can create content specifically for them. You can also go to Google Earth and see what work has been done in their backyards. Lots of pool areas. Maybe I don't need to touch on that so much, but areas that maybe have 1 or 2 pools, you can maybe start to advertise a little bit more for those hardscape or outdoor living space areas for those, especially with new builds. That would be an easy one that you don't necessarily have to go to Google Earth to see. Those would be good ones to target, basically.
We want to take a break from today's episode to thank our sponsor, Knowledge Tree Consulting. They are efficiency consultants in the industry with 35 plus years of industry experience building Oriole landscaping in Toronto, which they are completely hands off at this point. George and Peter have been on the podcast before, and George, on multiple occasions now, I've personally leaned on him to help with the How to Hardscape headquarters software and how we can maximize the efficiency of user experience. And I know the guys at DTE Landscaping, Chuck and Jeffrey, who we've also had on the show multiple times, have hired them on in the past. Check out their consulting services, peer groups, and events that are coming up on their website, knowledgetreeconsulting.com, or check them out on Instagram at joinktc. Now back to our episode.
I also really want to leverage our email marketing service that we have in the How to Hardscape headquarters software, where I want to work to get all clients that I have contacted us in the past to get them into our CRM, and then with specific tags or people that I've sent out proposals to, we can actually send a mass email to clients, and it'll be customized to the client. But I can say, okay, everybody last year that we sent a proposal to, but they didn't go ahead with the proposal, I want to send an email to everyone there that, hey, I just want to touch base with you, see if you got your project done. If you didn't, would you be interested in getting into our schedule next year, or come springtime, to be able to put that into my schedule, that I'm going to send this email out, and it's going to just hopefully get a few more people into the schedule. And these are people that we've already either paid for marketing to be able to acquire them, or it's not costing us any money to send out that email, basically. So I do want to revisit any clients that I've left out in my CRM and see where they were in the sales process. Maybe they reached out and we dropped the ball on communication. Hey, let's send out an email to everybody that was a lead, but we never went out and did a consultation. Hey, we saw that you contacted us last year or the year before, so on and so forth, and say, would you be interested in pursuing your project? Did you get your project done or not? And let's get you into the schedule for a consultation. If you'd be interested, send us a little bit more information on your project and what you were looking at, and we'll talk more and hopefully get you into a consultation in the spring. That is the last thing I want to touch on in marketing there. Which brings me to where I am still at with my business and not having a specific area that I service. I service a pretty wide area, and it's something that I want to cut down on in the future once personal things kind of fall into place, and to be able to say that, hey, I'm going to establish roots in this one specific area, because right now we can drive upwards of hour and 15 minutes, maybe a little bit more depending on traffic, to service specific areas, because I started my business in one area, relocated, moved to another area, but all my word of mouth and all my suppliers are in the initial area that I started my business. So I still want to hold on to that for now. And I don't know what the future holds and where we're going to establish roots. But when that does happen, I will focus on that specific area more so. But because I service such a wide area, this year I actually bought 2 pieces of equipment, 2 mini skid steers basically. And my goal was to actually set them up in different areas. So I could have one, basically so I don't have to drive around and pick up or drop off at the end of the day. I can just go and pick one up, and that covers me for a wide area. And I still have one in another area that can service me for that smaller area as well. And that actually worked really well this year. I've got 2 parked differently. I've got 1 trailer. I will probably pick up another trailer this off season, just so I have two trailers, and then I can have them outfitted. I've got more than enough tools to be able to set up both of those trailers, and then I've got that piece of equipment especially for each of those trailers, and that is going to do me really good, especially when we do eventually go to 2 crews. I've already got all those tools and equipment established, and when we do decide to settle down somewhere, we have then 2 specific tool trailers set up for 2 crews whenever we need that. Or worst case scenario, 1 trailer goes down or 1 piece of equipment goes down, we still have another one waiting for us. So that was especially really good for my business. I picked them up at a Ritchie Brothers auction, and they were those Chinese skid steer models, and that the first one was $4,000. It's too wide of a machine for me. I'll probably try to sell that as we close out the season here, because there's another auction coming up. And the second mini skid steer that I bought, they have more of those available, and that's the model that I want because it's a 38 inch. The last one was a 43 inch. We do a lot of tight access, and gates are typically around like 36 to 40 inches for us. So I really need that 38 inch machine. I couldn't find any 36 inch machines, but the 38 inch machine has done me really, really well. I actually like it a lot more than the other machine, but I will probably just try to swap out that 43 inch machine coming this next auction, or leading into an auction in the spring, and have 2 of those machines at the ready. The second machine, like I said, 38 inch, that cost me $3,000. So all things said, the equipment was like $7,000 plus closing fees, probably about $8,000 for 2 pieces of equipment. And they have actually been really, really well, done really, really well for me. And even if I get just 1 more season out of them, that's awesome. But they seem to be holding up good. And the 38 inch machine, it did give me some trouble during a stretch of period where it had some trouble starting up. I've got that problem fixed nicely, and the other 43 inch machine has just never had any trouble, other than the choke having some, it seized on me, but it was a very simple fix, just opening up the machine, finding the cord, and just lubricating it up a little bit. And I'm not good with mechanic. I'm not a mechanic at all, or knowing anything about equipment, but that was easy enough for me to figure it out and to be able to fix that simple issue myself. And that is it for equipment. I will probably pick up a Mini X at some point, maybe next year, but I think I'm fairly well with those 2, and especially with where we are serving right now. I really hope to have roots established very shortly, that I am not traveling greater distances, because especially with coming to the end of the season, you get really worn out, and especially with the colder weather, to have to drive so much, that's something that I'm really looking forward to put on the back burner for the ongoing future there. We want to take a break from today's episode to thank our sponsor, Cycle CPA. It's crucial to review your financial statements on a monthly basis so you can diagnose areas for improving your business's financial health early before they become significant issues. Too many contractors wait until the end of the year to review their financials as they file taxes, when it's often too late to take action to change the outcome. Cycle CPA not only handles bookkeeping and taxes, but they also ensure that you're armed with financial data on a monthly basis to make key business decisions. They offer benchmarking, cash flow forecasting, and assistance in developing targets for financial metrics. With their team of accountants specialized in the hardscape and landscape industry, they currently work with hundreds of companies in this field. Visit cyclecpa.com, and for $200 off, mention the How to Hardscape podcast. Now back to our episode. Now, I mentioned Porcelain at the beginning of this episode, and 2 Porcelain projects that I did this year, at the end of the year, actually. They both kind of fell in at the same time. Last year, I tried to sell porcelain unsuccessfully, and it was always just an option that I would throw at people that, hey, we can, these are the paver products and these are your options, but there's always this porcelain option and these are the benefits and what you can think about in terms of pricing and how much more it's going to be. But this year I actually got some sample booklets and I used those along with samples of pavers and everything like that. These little booklets that I bring with me just to start to get the conversation going and get the client thinking about product. And I usually do that on the initial consultation, just so if we're doing a design, to talk about what things we can include in the design and so on and so forth. And it's usually just one booklet that I take for pavers that has certain color blends that we use for those pavers. And then we take this porcelain book as well, and then we take also a natural stone book, and we just explain the different benefits and features to each of these. And it was this year that I had actually quite a bit of interest in porcelain. Some people just didn't like the price point that included with it, but I would say 3 interested parties that after seeing the porcelain and hearing about the benefits, they thought, yeah, that actually sounds great. And usually for the first time I'm about to install something, I say, I'm going to give you a better deal. This is my first time doing it, just to let you know, but here's what we're going to do for you, and here's how we're going to go about installing it, especially when I don't have a video to actually explain what that process looks like. So that actually, I said that's those 3 promising prospects, and 2 of them I landed. So 2 of them got a better deal than what I actually would charge nowadays for porcelain. Now, the first one went really well, and we made good money on it, actually, and even undercharging what I will be charging in the future for porcelain. We still made really good money with it. Now, the differentiating factor is that this one had minimal cuts. We did cuts along the foundation, straight cuts only, and then there were probably 4 cuts along the side, just so we had a staggered pattern, running bond pattern for them. That job went perfectly. It went great. This second project, coming back to my unorganized mind, I visited this client probably back in June, July. And to be honest, I didn't think that they were going to eventually sign up with me. So my notes for this project, and I didn't even take pictures when I first visited. And my notes for the project were very, very minimal. I did bring my U level and I did take some grades, but my notes on the grades were incoherent. And I even put this project on the back burner for at least 2 weeks. I didn't quote it, just because I didn't even think that the client was interested when I met with them. But they pushed me for the quote, and probably 2.5, 3 weeks later, I sent them a quote. Now, I based the quote on my notes, which was a mistake, because we ended up, the way that the elevations worked, and taking out a concrete patio, I missed out on a lot of excavation. I should go back to my notes to see how much it was, but it's like probably at least 6 inches over 600 square feet that I missed out on, that I did not quote, just because of my notes and where I was, shooting these grades and these elevations and taking notes. But they ended up going ahead with the initial quote, and that did not include the porcelain. So come time for the second meeting and talking a little bit more about design and what they liked about my design, what they want to change about it, I offered the option of porcelain, and I showed them my sample booklet. I had just gotten it at this time. So I then quoted in the porcelain, and still at this point, even if I knew that I had messed up with my grades and my notes and all that, I would have just eaten it still. But at this point, I didn't know that I'd mess up that much. And then the second thing that I did not consider with quoting porcelain was the amount of cuts that this project had. Around the entire perimeter of the project, it was going to require cuts. Every single piece, except 1, 2 on the left outside edge, which where we would be laying full pieces from. But once again, stack bond pattern, we would need half pieces. And then up against the foundation, there were probably 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces that did not require cuts, because the foundation actually came off on an angle. So it started parallel to where we would be laying to. And then it had a window outlet that angled outwards, and then parallel once again, and then angled back inwards, and then parallel once again. And then, but at that point, we would also have steps, which would require cuts. Well, I just carried on my quote for cuts of those pavers and carried it over to my porcelain price. Now, cutting those pavers, yeah, it would have been quite a bit. I probably quoted at least a day, 3/4 of a day to a day worth of cuts. But not to mention that on the right side of the patio, we would have a seat wall that would also be curved. And cutting porcelain takes a lot more time, a lot more patience. And if you mess up, it's not what is it? Maybe like a $5 paver, up maybe $10 paver. It is actually a 6 square feet, $60 piece. So if you mess up, it's going to cost you a lot more. And so I didn't factor all this in, and I just continued on with my cutting price for pavers. Mistake number 2. Additionally, there are posts coming down to support the deck. What do you call those? Helical piles that would require cutting. Literally everywhere in this patio there are cuts. We even did a hide skimmer lid to do a gas line. And so these cuts probably took 2.5 days. So at least 2.5 days. It's hard to add it all up because we cut in the porcelain by the seat wall. We then did the cuts along the foundation with the steps, built the steps, and then we went back and did a curved cut along the far edge away from the foundation, and then we did the left side. Just the way that this kind of project worked out, we wanted to get the seat wall laid, do our cuts, get the steps laid, do our cuts. So all things said, it at least took 2.5 days to do these cuts. And just to help out, I will be doing a video on my production rates for porcelain from these past 2 projects and these cuts and how long that they took us. And ultimately, this came down to not being organized enough to have solid notes for this project and taking photos. It skipped my mind because I felt during the consultation that this wasn't a client for me. Turns out they're amazing clients. They're my best client of the year for sure. So that my read was off on them. Actually, I only met one of them the first time that I went out. So that also doesn't bode well for what I think how this consultation is going to go. And so everything about my perception was off about the client. Everything about my notes were off, and my idea around cutting porcelain, because up until this point I hadn't done a porcelain project, was off. My thought on laying the porcelain was off, and installing truss, I hadn't thought about how long that would take, but all of that kind of factored into my discounted rate for what I would give them for porcelain, because I knew that once I had production rates, I know now how much I should be charging, and I knew that I would be lower quoting these projects than what I would actually be. That's how my kind of discount came in there. But now I've got all those squared away. I'm much more confident the next time I'm going to quote a porcelain project. I really do like the truss system. We use it on the outside edge, not against hard surfaces, so not against the foundation and not against the seat wall and not against the steps. And then we back buttered with mortar and laid into HPB. That takes away the hollow sound when you're stepping on them. That takes away any movement you might feel stepping on the edges. That being said, I think in next year for my next porcelain project, I would probably do the entire thing in truss and charge appropriately for that, because it is expensive and it is a pain to do. I actually hate doing porcelain compared to pavers, but I can't deny that it is an amazing product. And the end result of the patio was awesome. It looks amazing, but you do have to really charge for what it's worth. And especially using that truss system, which is a cementitious binder that you mix with HPB, and then you screed it out, and then you back butter this elutriant onto the back of the porcelain, and then you set it in, and it's rock solid. There's zero movement, and it's also permeable as well, which is the benefit as opposed to pouring concrete. I hate pouring concrete. I don't want to do overlays for a patio, like pour my own concrete and then do the overlay, or subcontract out the concrete, which if you don't have the right subcontractor could be a pain in and of itself. But I hate that. I do like the idea of the truss. It's just a pain, and I will just kind of leave it at that. And I'll talk more about that in some YouTube videos coming up. So that was my experience with porcelain for these past couple of porcelain projects. Now, coming into next season, we had a influx of people reach out to us in August, which is a really weird time. We had a very slow June, July. But when August came around, we had an influx of people coming. Usually that comes actually in September, early October. People looking to get things done really quick at the end of the season. For whatever reason, that came in August. And a lot from YouTube as well, those leads came in from, but also our website. And I will try to, I did sign up and still have people that I want to meet coming into the end of the season, where I just want to get them on the schedule for the spring. But I've got a good amount of lift and relays to start my season, which is a thing that I like to start my season with, is those lift and relays, because we're not worried about mud or anything like that. I think it's a great season starter, so I'm going to hold on to those lift and relays. And they're also great to fill in holes in the schedule throughout the season. So once again, I do anticipate to eventually have a lift and relay crew and a full design build crew. And I'm going to hold on to those lift and relay projects, because I really like them. And especially with coming to the end of the season here, that's what I like to end my season with, because once again, getting into mud season and frozen weather season, it's nice to just have those lift and relays at the end of the year to be able to hop on really quick. And hey, if the snow comes, they're usually only 2 to 5 days, 3 to 5 day jobs, if that. And it's great to be able to wrap up a job. Snow comes, you know what? That's the end of the season for us. I don't try to push it anymore, especially with all the things that I've got on my plate with the headquarters software and everything that I'm doing online. That does get overwhelming, and it's nice to be able to now think about the time that I have in the office in the off season to batch schedule interviews for the How to Hardscape podcast, to work on videos, to batch schedule those out. Like I mentioned, create more content for the marketing side for shorts and reels, work on the website, and then also get my developers ready for the year to come and our roadmap. We have a big phase coming up where we are implementing Gantt chart scheduling, where when you create a proposal and you do certain work areas and you have production rates for those certain work areas, you'll be able to schedule those overlapping work areas. For example, if you have a work area that is a patio and a work area that is a retaining wall, the excavation of both of those is likely going to be at the same time. So you can actually use the Gantt chart to be able to schedule those at the same time, see visually where you are in terms of percentages of your clocked in hours at each of those, and be able to visually compare where you are in that scheduling of that Gantt chart. And it would be really good to have that visual of, okay, where are we percentage wise into our excavation, and where are we visually in the field? Are we hitting our markers? Or maybe we have clocked in 100% of our hours on that excavation, but we're still excavating, and so on and so forth there. So that is a big thing that I am looking forward to in this next phase, which should be out in January. And then we're going to revisit our scheduler and really revamp that and add a lot more features to that, which I'm also very excited about as well. And that's something that I'm looking forward to in my business, to be able to use a lot more and to be a lot more organized in my business, because that is something that very quickly falls by the wayside, especially with spring rush and getting consultations scheduled and so on and so forth. That just, my organization just goes out the window. I start my season looking very excited for being organized, and within a few weeks that falls apart. So that software is going to help not only me in my business, but I hope it may help you in your business if you'd be interested in taking a look at it. We are working on videos for the website, but have a lot of visuals already on the website. That's hthheadquarters.com, which I worked on recently and will be working on to come to just show off all the different features that we have. I'm also looking forward to, as I bring back my full-time employee and hopefully hire on another full-time employee next year, being able to work on a point system structure and a career path forward for them in the business, if they so to wish to stay long term, what that would look like in the business. The point system will be really cool. It will be based on whatever you want to establish for your business in terms of different triggers that set different points. For example, your employee clocks in on time or early. How many points do they get? They remember to clock out at the end of the day. How many points do they get? They go through different courses. How many points do they get? But to be able to create a gamification within the software for your employees to see where they're at in their business compared to other employees, and you can use that for leaderboards to be able to reward certain employees that hit certain points, thresholds, or quarterly if they're in the leaderboard, and so on and so forth there. So I'm actually really excited about that point system structure. What else are we working on right now? Mostly refining a lot of different systems that we already have in place in the software. I would say by January, we'll have a lot of those rolled out, and going to be revamping a little bit of the budgeting side of things and overhead recovery, how you want to actually go about overhead recovery through the software, and kind of explaining that further as we get into the next season. And that is kind of just a wrap up, just rambling on about what I'm thinking about in my business, what I plan to do in my business, and what I'm going to be doing in the off season, because the off season is the time for me to regroup, see what I want to improve on, and see what I want to work on for next year. But hey, I hope this has helped you in some way, or just given you some ideas maybe, or things that you can work on in the off season. If you have any questions about any of the stuff that I touched on, happy to help. you can send me a message at How to Hardscape, or like I said, go to hthheadquarters.com if you want to learn more about our software and what we have coming available and what we're working on and all the features that we have. Each feature has its own page, so you can learn more about each of those features. And like I said, we'll have videos on each of those features. We already do have an onboarding course where each of the tabs has its own video that you can watch, but that'll also be rolled into the software where each tab will have its own help menu where you can just simply watch a video and see how to interact with that tab. So that is also something that's coming down the pipeline. And hey, if you have any suggestions for me as well in terms of, or just want to open up a conversation, send me a message. I'd be happy to learn more about what you are doing. And looking forward to events this off season, to be honest, and to see people at events and to, just see what's coming down the pipeline also for other businesses and manufacturers in our industry. Last year, I went to a couple of events, and I hope to actually go to a lot more events this year. And hopefully my schedule lines up for that, and I'm not too busy that I can actually go to as many events as possible here. But if you're going to be at any local events in Ontario, I'd be happy to hear that you are going, and let me know which ones you're planning on going on to. But that is the end of today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Like I said, send me a message at How to Hardscape or go to hthheadquarters.com if you want to learn more about our software there. And I want to say thank you to our sponsors.
Cycle CPA. If you're looking for bookkeeping, accounting, CFO services, reach out to Cycle CPA at cyclecpa.com. Let them know How to Hardscape sent you for money off their services there. And Knowledge Tree Consulting. If you're looking for efficiency consultants who have a lot of experience in our industry, check out Knowledge Tree Consulting at knowledgetreeconsulting.com.
And we look forward to meeting with you next week on the How to Hardscape podcast.